we're just waiting for 5 minutes so that everyone can join. For everyone who's on YouTube, if you would like to join the gathering on Gathertown, which you can see on your screens, that's somewhere you can actually interact and participate in the event today. So if you want to join that, please do join the gathering. The link will be there in the YouTube chat. For those who are on Gathertown right now, while we are waiting for 5 minutes, you all can check the few interactives that we have put together for you guys on the right side of the main seating area. And on the left side, we have the exhibition website, which is also viewable from this space itself. So please take a walk around, have a look. We are actually very excited that you guys are in this space right now. Firstly, I would like to welcome you all on behalf of the draft team and all of us at the lab to this space. And this was the very space that served as the collaborative text lab for us through the past few months, since March really, because that's when our early experiments started for all our lab meetups, group experiments and workshops. And it's only fitting that we host this final showcase here. And we had a lot of fun setting up the space and changing our old layout to accommodate everyone and removing some of our desks and smaller breakout rooms. Hope you enjoy the surroundings, and it gives some sense of physical space and movement, even though it's through your screens and keyboards. We've also kept some coffees around if if you guys like, because the timing is odd for some people. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping announcements. This event is being live streamed and recorded. So if you wish to not be visible, please disable your camera. And we request you to keep your mics off when you're not speaking. And because of the limited time, we'll have an overall Q&A session towards the end after going through all the presentations and demos of the experiments. So please hold on to your questions for later, and feel free to put them in chat though throughout the presentations. And Himani, who will be moderating the chat, will collect all of them as we go through the event, and she will help us moderate that at the end. Lastly, we would love to see your reactions, despite the cameras and mics being off. So please heartily use the smiley face icon at the bottom center of the screen. You can see it gives you a bunch of reactions. So we would just love to see that. And yeah, we can already see it. All right. So I'd like to start by thanking the creators who've been a part of this lab and exhibition, and they have dedicated their time and effort and always remaining inspired, even though there were challenging situations through the pandemic. And their high energy and amazing ideas have really helped us keep up the collective spirit and put wonderful experiments together. You can see them and wave at them. They are sitting behind the podium between the bookshelves and the vending machine. And we'll be introducing all of them shortly as they come up to take you through their lab experiments. And to set some context, a brief introduction about draft for everyone who may not have attended a draft gathering before. Draft was originally planned as a 2-day festival on text and technology, but soon it had to be adapted for the virtual world due to the pandemic conditions. But with that, we were suddenly not restricted by geography, which allowed us to expand our scope and include writers, technologists, and creators from around the world, and develop Draft as a larger community rather than a standalone festival. We look at Draft also as a long-term research project to explore future of text, and staying true to the meaning of and in essence of Draft, which is celebrating the idea of work in progress and focusing more on process and building prototypes and experimentation. We intend for it to keep evolving along with the people who are a part of it and their interests, and growing trends in text and literature and changing technology with time. So in this way, we are not keeping any boundaries for its identity, but just fostering experimentations and collaborations and growth as organically as possible. I'd now take this opportunity to also thank my peers on the draft team for putting all this together. They're sitting here on the C-shaped table on the right. You can wave at them also if you'd like. Now coming to the exhibition. The freeFall Future Text exhibition that we put together has emerged from a month-long collaborative text lab, as you all know, and some early experiments since March 2021. During the lab months, we also had a few open lab days for anyone to join. One such day was for a workshop on web scraping called Crawling the Web for Poetry, conducted by Denny and Tarunima from Tattle. That's their venture that deals with fighting misinformation with tools for journalists and researchers. And they have some amazing data tools and databases, and they are really great at web scraping. The intention for the collaborative text lab was to create a space and environment for creators to gather in collective study and experimentation in an effort to discover new forms of text, its usage and presentation, going beyond the flatness of platforms. And platform can be anything from language to web platforms to archives, programming languages, devices. There could be many ways to look at it, and the creators were free to see it however they feel they want to attempt it. Today we have gathered in the very same space, as you all know, where the experiments were happening. And now coming to the actual exciting segment, I am inviting Catherine and Steffi to take the floor now with their lab project called Storehouse A. It's one of the interactives which is also on the right side. You guys can check it out later. Catherine is a creative technologist interested in creating poetic tools in the pursuit of soft tech. And Steffi is a visual poet and artist with a background in film, English literature, and fine arts. They are both currently based in Hong Kong. And yeah, so Catherine and Steffi, if you could come up to the podium, I'll hand it over to you guys.
Hello, everyone. So let me share my screen to introduce our project. So hi, I'm Steffi, and this is our project called Storehouse A. And Storehouse A is a text and typography-based virtual exhibition space, which showcases works of interactive visual poetry. The graphic style is inspired by a dungeon crawl game called NetHack. And by associating our project with a dungeon crawler, we wanted to rethink exhibition spaces and how formal or playful we can approach works of art, and how much agency the reader or the viewer has in experiencing these works. It also led to us reading up on the origins of the labyrinth in Greek mythology, and this research gave us further inspiration on how we wanted to structure this space and help us compose the story we want to tell. So let me start by entering the space. So this space is, as it reveals itself as you explore. Just like how visual poetry exists between the genres of literature and visual art, Storehouse A is not just the virtual reiteration of a gallery space, nor is it fully a dungeon crawl game. It overlaps these worlds, but by belonging to neither, it has the opportunity to become its own entity and develop into its own unique form of expression. This is also why we chose to call this space a storehouse, which is a neutral term that is simply defined as a building which stores things. So beside the ASCII graphics, we also looked to NetHack's use of symbols to represent different types of items found in the game. As you can see in the legend, these are items we incorporated in the game, but then we actually took these items and translated them into themes for our visual poems. So let me take the opportunity to show you one of our works. In conceptualizing and writing these poems, we tried to think about how these items could be expressed in the contemporary. Taking this scroll as an example, it requires the user to physically scroll on their trackpad or mouse in order for the words to appear. So right now I'm brushing on my trackpad, and when it senses that, the words appear. The poem itself also takes the visually elongated shape of a scroll, and its contents, as you will find with many of the other artworks, is self-reflexive on its identity. So in the case of this scroll, it talks about this motion of brushing away at the dust to discover, and brings to mind the idea of archaeological excavation. So all of our visual poems require different types of actions in order to be accessed and read. And we wanted to present a type of visual poetry that isn't only in the word itself or the image it forms on the space of the page, but instead the process of accessing these works also carries a poetic sensibility. In a way, the poems are being performed in real time through your process of participation and are incomplete without your exploration, as is with the space itself. So let me hand over to Catherine to continue talking about our project.
Great, thanks, Steffi. Hi, I'm Catherine, and my role in this project was more about working with Steffi to bring all the conceptual ideas to life with the technology. And so for me, working with kind of like this game setting, but kind of firmly in the context of literature and art, it was also a really kind of poignant reflection on the overlap between the roles of reader, writer, and player. So for me, it was kind of a testament to how sometimes reading a work can be very similar to playing a game, in that you have to kind of decode the meaning, the layers of meaning and style in the words, and also kind of gain an understanding of the mechanics that the author used in the works in order to be able to interpret and understand and even interact with the piece. Visual poetry in particular, I think, is a really great example of how this relationship between the reader and the text can work, in terms of you kind of being a player in the situation. So for me, this was kind of an exercise in recognizing those associations and making them explicit in the mechanics of this game. So as you can see, Steffi's now exploring the space, and by kind of like prodding around, going through a trial and error process, she's kind of excavating the space and showing the entire text of the map. Each of these works is also kind of like a mini game in itself, where you have to kind of like taking the idea of a visual poem and pushing it even further. You have to really see what the kind of conceit of the artwork is, and you're provided with the agency to activate it. On the left here, you also see there's a log of your actions, as inspired by a lot of text adventure games. We have action statements like you enter the storehouse, you step into a hallway. And we also wanted to show kind of traces of your exploration, your trial and error efforts, through the use of these kind of transparent, half-transparent arrows. So this is kind of our attempt to also connect it with your role as kind of a writer in the space as well. So we also wanted to kind of give a broader narrative arc to the game, very loosely. So I think Steffi has another tab open with the final stage. Yeah, so the idea is that if you are a reader who's kind of who has the enterprise to really explore the space and interact with all 9 poems, then you get access to a secret 10th hidden poem, which is actually the source code of the entire website, which covers the HTML and the JavaScript. And this is our testament to how the project is really based on text and typography, and to us, the source code is also an integral part of that content as well. So this kind of takes inspiration from Quine works, which are works that produce itself as the output. And so using kind of like a spatial metaphor of like going downstairs beneath the map, this is kind of like showing you the whole infrastructure of the project. So that's our project. Steffi, do you have any last words?
We just want to thank the collaborative text lab of Draft, giving us a platform to connect and develop this project. It's been really fun kind of doing it in a trial and error, and it's just been a very supportive community, and we're just very happy to be a part of it. So thank you, and excited to see the other projects presented. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Catherine and Steffi. That was lovely. This is one of the very extensive projects, and we absolutely loved having both of you as part of the lab. And of course, you guys will continue and have been a part of it. So thanks. Thank you so much. Next, I would like to call Likla to share her playground of text. That's also one of the interactives that's already there on the right side. Some of you have seen it. I'll just introduce her before she comes in. Likla is a children's book writer, currently curious about learning story structures and digital art. So Likla, please take on the podium.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to like get onto the podium.
Yeah, I think you're on it. Just
Oh, awesome. All right. Once again, thank you so much, Draft. This has been like a really fun 2 months for me while stuck in the lockdown that we're. So until 2 months ago, I didn't know a lot about so well, there were a lot of ideas, and I think I had more ideas than the skills to like carry them out. So that's why I got to like this concept of the poetry playground, because on one hand, I'm curious about pedagogy from my work and about play and learning, and how children interact with it. And I think all of us have had the well, not all of us, but everyone here is from India has sort of had the experience of the Indian education system, and I don't think it really teaches you much of a love for like language or literature, except for that one errant English teacher, which I was very lucky to have. And so I thought like a playground where you get to explore text would be a fun thing to create, whilst also treating it as a playground for me to explore all these different tools and codes and languages. And so I'm going to share my screen now. And it's okay. So disclaimer: it's a draft at this point. And the idea is that there will be, as I keep exploring different little areas of play that start to appear. So I'm actually going to start with the second one here, which is like a Frankenstein poetry, and I've got one in Hindi and one in English as well. So the idea is pretty simple. It generates a new poem from Dante's Divine Comedy, kind of endlessly. And then this is from the book of Mahadevi Verma. So I was very curious to see how this sort of structure, it's pretty much the same code, just two different texts. So the types of poems that come out of it are quite different. They read very differently. And then the other one was sort of based in the processing.js world, and I was looking at like a double input. So while it's sort of doing this whole speech to text thing, you get to like draw and create almost like a visual poetry from whatever you're speaking. And I got a bunch of my friends to try it out, and I've got a gallery here, and you guys can kind of check it out later and play yourselves and add in. But I think I'll share like a few of those examples. And it became like such a fun experiment for me in just the frustration of technology. So first of all, to kind of explain what I was trying to achieve. So there were like many renditions of hello, hello, can you hear me? Is this working? Why is this not working? And then finally like frustrations on like font size. And at this point it's a very simple version. So when you kind of click on it, it stops and then you can take a screenshot. So I'm hoping over time I'll make it a little more finessed. Well, so that's me. And I think there were like a few other ideas that I have that I'm probably going to work on, but yeah, it was like a really fun exploration for me, and I'm really glad to be a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Likla. Absolutely love the poetry playground. I've spent so much time with it. Thanks. Next, I would like to call Pankari to share her interactive fiction game that she's created called The Good Citizen. That's also there in the interactives on the right side. Quick introduction of Pankari. Pankari is a practitioner and academic of dance and theatre. She completed her MPhil in Women's Studies from Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. She has been active in, I'm sorry, I think there are a lot of pings. Am I audible? Yeah, I think, yeah, okay. She has been active in several student-led movements in Delhi, including Kiss of Love, Pinjra Tor, Justice for Rohit Vemula, and Stand with JNU. So here goes Pankari.
Am I in the podium now? Yeah. Okay, so I was probably one of the lab participants who knew the least about or nothing about coding. But so for my project, there were two starting points. One was this conversation I had with a friend. We were talking about the activists currently under this regime that we have in India, the activists who have been wrongfully arrested and are wrongfully incarcerated. And this friend knew nothing about those activists, and she had just been watching news, and she had just gotten one version of whatever was happening. And then, so as I was talking to her, and because one of the jailed activists is my friend, so I was telling her more and more about this friend. And so that activist became more and more human for my friend. And she could relate a lot more, relate with the choices that that this activist had made much more. And that was sort of like a moment for me where I understood that a lot of people are against or don't really understand activists because they're only getting one version of their lives or the charges that they're facing or whatever. The second starting point obviously was in the one of the initial meetings of the draft lab. Nanditi and Ambika introduced me to interactive fiction games, which I didn't even know what they were before this, and this tool called Twine. And it required you to know very little coding, so that was great for me. So the platform that I was wanted to explore was news, mainstream news, because several arrested and persecuted activists in India are vilified on mainstream media by news anchors showing them as showing caricatured versions of them. So fake or decontextualized statements are attributed to them, and often they're reduced to just a tag, like they're just called anti-national or secular or libtard, which is a portmanteau of liberal and retard. I mean, these tags are downright offensive, if not absolute lies. So this game or this fiction that I created, it's called A Good Citizen. It's an attempt to make stories of these activists and their choices more relatable, or at least showing that there is more to these stories. So like I wanted to find that platform that the news had created, more depth to each of those stories. My aim is to make the player put himself or herself in the place of the actors and make the same choices that they made, and thereby generating some sort of relatability or empathy for the activists. Okay, I'll show the game once and then talk a little bit more about it. Can you see? Do one of you want to volunteer to play it with me? Like, Nash, are you in the audience?
I'll do it. Yes.
Okay.
Me?
All right. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so the game opens with Namaskar, welcome, good citizen. There's also a lot of, right now in India, a lot of like jargon around who's a good citizen, how nationalist he or she is, how much they can dissent and how much they can't dissent, and what defines a good citizen. So I wanted to call the game the good citizen because of that. So welcome, good citizen. We believe in your innate goodness, your rational thinking, and your superpowers of empathy. So do you want to pick one choice?
Okay, let's go.
Okay. Cool. So let's say Nat.
Just put my name.
Okay, cool. So you get to pick an avatar, like in any video game. So you can be one of these. Which life would you like to live today, Nashra?
You know what?
Pick anyone other than the priest because I haven't finished that one yet.
Okay, I'll be the lawyer. I'm already a student, so let's be someone else.
Awesome. So it starts with some encouragement. So you are a high achiever, Nashra. Good for you because you were born to super educated parents. So now the story of this character will start because you were born to super educated parents and in a first world foreign land. So, yeah.
I sound.
Ironically, it's the land that you are in right now, Nashra. But yeah, anyway.
I sound like a brat.
Not at all. You came back to India with your parents and eventually ended up joining IIT Kanpur for a degree in integrated mathematics. And then there isn't a choice. You just go nice. So it's very nice. You get a nice teaching job in Delhi Public School. But then you hear of an activist in central India leading an extraordinary democratic and visionary nonviolent worker struggle. A lot of young students, activists, and even middle class people from across the northern belt are drawn to this workers' organization. You decide to leave your plush job in the capital and go to central India.
Amazing.
So it's yeah, sorry, I just chose for you because that was the only option. They don't make them like you anymore, but you do find your true calling as an activist, organizing protests against mining sharks like Jindal, Birla, Adani, and Tata. You begin your legal career. Legal career assisting lawyers as legal cases pile up against trade union activists. Your fellow activists urge you to pursue law and become a lawyer yourself, because lawyers are proving to be both untrustworthy and expensive. Ever heard of this saying? A lawyer with a briefcase can steal more than 100 men with guns. But that wasn't you, was it, Nash?
I'm a good person.
Yeah, yes, you are. Yes, you are. A real gem, fighting for the rights of Dalits, Adivasis, farmers, and the other oppressed. You become their champion in courts in a setting where they exercise little power. So, can I go now? So this is where so every story, obviously, because it's about incarcerated activists, there's going to be a grim turn of events. You get arrested for allegedly inciting violence. Several other prominent activists fighting for the oh, I made a typo here. Fighting for the people have been arrested in the same case. Evidence seems fabricated, witnesses false. You protest, so do many academics, activists, and civil society members. The FIR shown to you is in Marathi, a language that you do not understand. An FIR is a first information report filed by the police. You are 59 at this point. You suffer from diabetes and high blood pressure and have a history of pulmonary tuberculosis. You are at risk as there is a COVID-19 outbreak in your prison, but the courts do not relent and do not grant you bail. Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. This is the act under which a lot of these activists have been arrested. So UAPA is a much abused act, often used to silence voices of dissent against the government. It functions on the principle of preventative detention with extremely stringent rules for bail. And then you have an option like if you have followed the story till end, then you have an option to go to the real world. And then you realize that this is the story of Sudha Bhardwaj, leaving her daily life behind. Sudha Bhardwaj traveled to Chhattisgarh in 1986 to work with Shankar Guha Neogi and his organization Chhattisgarh Mukti Morcha. It was here that she came to realize that she must pursue law in order to help her fellow activists and the indigenous people that she wanted to work for. Sudha Bhardwaj was arrested on 28th August 2018. She was accused of inciting violence in Bhima Koregaon by giving a speech at Elgar Parishad. 15 other activists who have been very vocal against the government have also been charged with similar cases. Sudha remains incarcerated under UAPA. And then you have an option to actually read something by Sudha. So that, because she's a trade union activist, she's always been saying that we need groups to organize to fight. They're the ones who can make a dent. And then you can pick another avatar and follow another journey. There is the student, there is the lawyer, there is a midday meal cook, the doctor, and the priest. I tried to get activists just to show how this system is working. I try to get activists from all different walks of life and show their story. So a few things that I want to do now. I mean, this is obviously super basic, and this is what I could do right now with whatever I understood. But something that I want to do in the future is translate the whole thing into Hindi so that it is more accessible to a wider audience. Because I mean, this is not something that I want circulating only in some elite circles, people who understand English and things like that. I would also like to add a point system which would correspond to the choices that the players make, making the game more engaging. These tentatively I'm thinking of calling freedom points. Players gain or lose freedom based on the choices that they make. And I also have to do more research and add more choices to the whole game so that it becomes more engaging. And there are also some very brilliant moments of solidarity and collaboration between activists and movements. So that also I'm thinking of taking into account and making it a little more complex. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Pankari. Really looking forward to a version 2 of this. And
yeah,
we'll continue this in the lab. And thank you, Nashra, for volunteering to play being the lawyer. Okay, Pankari, why don't you take on introducing the rest of the folks? Thanks.
So next we have Agat and Anushka. Anushka, or Ophelia Game on the internet, has been using Instagram to venture out during the lockdown when physically going out was not possible. She now makes things on the web using different libraries and tools, which have till now mostly been images or videos of her exploration. Agat is a theatre maker, designer, and educator from Jaipur, and also a co-instigator at Draft, currently based in Amsterdam as a part of the Das Theater. His work is never-ending exploration of the connections between the uncanny and the banal, the natural and the modern. So take it away, Anushka and Agat.
Hi, so hello everybody. I am Ophelia Game and Anushka of the internet. And so I'm just going to start screen sharing. I'm going to talk about this project, which is called Radia XD3X Rekta, and it's sort of a weird name. So for those of you who don't know, D3 is a data visualization library. Radia refers to the Radia tapes that were sort of made public, and they talk about a telecom scam, which was very big in India. And Rekta is a amazing site dedicated to Urdu and Hindi poetry, and other lots of amazing stuff. So me and Agat started working on this project because basically the why is that we just wanted to make something, and both of us were I think really fascinated with how text need not flow in lines, with the concept of concrete poetry, and how can we basically free text of the structure that it seems to have taken so much throughout its usage. So yeah, so the why is nothing like intense. Just wanted to make something, and fascinated with concrete poetry and the idea of words as images. So I think that images can be like a really good way of conveying information in a flash. And if we think of words as images, that can sort of increase the number of information that we want to convey, because words also carry this baggage with them, wantedly or unwantedly. And in an image, it's a lot of context and a lot of meaning. And I think it's got a lot of potential. So while digging through the internet for references and what we should do, I chanced upon this this thing. It's on a site called Remix Data, and the author used D3 herself for making this sort of poem structure. Here the data is also written by the author themselves, and the structure of this poem is based on D3 and a layout which is called forced layout. So I thought that this was a really nice jumping point for us to sort of see what we can do from here. And since I don't consider myself a writer of any sorts, I was just thinking about what the data could be that I can feed into this layout and the structure. And the first thing that came to my mind was Google autocomplete. Just typing one day, I was like, this seems to be like the perfect way to explore this layout and see further what we can do. Why this kind of made sense is you start from something, you start typing something, and then Google gives you different directions to go from it. So this was one of the first experiments that I did with the layout. And then going further, both of us were really fascinated with radia tapes, and we wanted to really explore the material, the archive material in Padma. But since I hadn't found a way of using this material properly until then, we just decided to stick to radia and the transcript of these tapes for the beginning. And the key points that sort of made this project into the form that it is now is of the decision of should it be an exploratory thing that explores radia tapes, but that would become sort of like a niche application and not a lot of people would want to use it or have as much fun. So instead of making it exploratory and just trying to understand what different characters in the radia tapes wanted to say to each other about different things, we try to make it a little more expanded. And Agat actually gave me a lot of pointers on how to sort of move forward and make the interaction of the project as it is now. So right now, basically, you enter a word and then you get a poem in the form that was shown before. And one of the problems with this is that the context of those things do not match at all. So the word that you might say might not be in the bag of words or the vocabulary that we have. And so there's a problem of trying to jump from one context to another. And for this, we basically used word embeddings, and we tried to take the word that you said and find the closest words to it, and then sort of go on from that. So Rekta comes into the picture because I wanted to expand the vocabulary from just English to also Hindi, and also because I'm comfortable with Hindi. And so Dennis, who if you've attended the workshop on scraping, very kindly built us a scraper for Rekta, and using that, we were also able to incorporate Rekta into this project. So now I'm just going to stop sharing for a second and show you the website. So this is how it works is you say something over here and you select what you want to which one. So Padma is for if you want to go for the Radia tapes, which is on Padma. Select Padma and then you press this, and yeah, you get something of the sort where so we have to explain the connections that are being made in the words. For now, I've kept it quite simple, and there's lots of ways that this can go forward. But basically how the connections work is every word is connected to the next word in the same sentence. And then we sort of find all the unique words in the whole word thing that we have. And then in that way, if there are similar or same words in more than one sentence, and then obviously they have relationships with the words that come after them, so it sort of becomes a sort of web. And for now you can just play with it by trying to maybe move it around and trying to read it in different ways. Yeah, and if I want to do this with Rekta, it's a little bit moody, so it takes a bit of time, but yeah. Yes, so let me say car. I'm not sure if this will work. Oh, it did. Okay, yeah. So further, how I think this could really move forward is because now I sort of understand how to use Padma instead of using just Radia tapes. We can convert this, expand this further from just Radia to the whole of Padma and the transcripts, the amazing transcripts that it has.
I think we have Anushka again after this. She's also done another project for Draft, which is the supercuts. Or did she do it already? Did she present that already?
She is yet to present that.
Yeah. Okay.
So hi again. Since in the beginning I was really nervous and I really forgot to like thank, which I thought I would do the first. So to this whole process and everybody on Draft and everybody who was on the journey with me, it's just been so fun and so like my thoughts have started to move. I'm sort of not finding the right words, but yeah, thank you for bringing us on this journey. So I'm going to talk about something I made with Padma, and it's sort of a video project, you can call it, but how it aligns with text is that all of this would not be possible if there was not transcripts that people spent hours writing on Padma for all of the videos and all of the content that's all on it. If there was not that text, that background, the spine for all of these videos, it would be really hard to process them or basically just even make this. So the why Padma has since the moment that I actually found it and was introduced to it, it's been so fascinating, the amount of material, the kind of material that's on it. I think it's very different from what I might find on YouTube and other platforms. And for me, that's what makes it different, and also is like a plus point. And so for those of you who know, Videogrep is also another project which is very kind of similar to this, but the platform that they use for Videogrep is YouTube and the subtitles that's on YouTube videos. But with YouTube, what's different is that not every video has a subtitle. So you kind of miss a lot of material in that sense. And also a podcast called Lohaka, the Lohaka podcast, where sort of the narrative or the podcast does not run linearly, and the scripts overlap, the voice actors also sometimes overlap, and this way of storytelling, of picking up a topic and then coming at it from different perspectives really fascinated me. And I thought it could really easily be implemented with something like Padma and the search functionality that it very nicely offers us. So moving to the how, I spent a lot of time calling the Padma API and not getting an answer, and just really getting rejected from the entire thing. But then once during one of these sessions when I was trying to call it, I had a light bulb moment where I thought I could just cheat, and then because the Padma website, obviously they're also calling their own API, and I thought maybe this is the way that I can finally understand how to make the API listen to me. So I went in the console of the Padma website, and in the networks tab, I found what I was looking for. And that's basically how I understand the API to whatever extent I do right now. After sort of understanding how to call the API with what parameters and what it's going to return me back, comes JavaScript and the fact that I didn't know how to do promises well. So as I mentioned before, Dennis had made a scraper for us, and the code that he wrote, I found it to be very clean, very precise, and so I kept referring to that to finally move from breaking promises in JavaScript to making them. And so basically how this, how the project works is you give the tool a search term, which could be one word or it could be like a sentence, whatever you wish. And then you can specify the number of search results that you would like to have, the maximum number of search results that you would like to sort of get your data, get your cuts from. And the duration of each cut can also be specified, because what I've sort of found out with Padma is that some of the videos can have subtitles which are not super granular. So the cut duration can range from like 5 seconds to sometimes into minutes. So if you do not want your cuts to be that long, you can just specify that duration. And yeah, so basically you search by transcript on the whole platform, and then you get a bunch of search results. And then for each search result, you take the part of that video which has the search term that you're interested in. So I'm just going to play this and let me know if the audio
not only the copy
is not working.
Not at all based on copyright.
Star Z सब भी इसमें रिकॉर्ड में रोका नेटवर्क में इन्वेस्टमेंट है तो इन लार्ज मीडिया एम्पायर्स के लिए कॉपीराइट क्रिटिकल है,
which is the sort of early predecessor to copyright.
I want to call them. Traditionally in copyright law, the target
of copyright in a sense, etc. So yes, they have powers.
Well, the legislative process in the United States surrounding copyright on the lawyers to go and push Congress year in and year out for new copyright law, put pressure on if you're a copywriter, and the interest to push in Washington for copyright law.
After copyright for all forms of creation.
So with regard to copyright, the first thing I'd say is that there have been a number of historical periods where copyright gets foregrounded. Copyright is used to enforce social ends and social control, but in my lifetime,
some of which has been passed.
So I think with this one, it's really easy to figure out what this supercut is about. But sometimes it might not be that easy to sort of figure out.
Without a conscience. Vigilantes in khaki who hand out their own versions of justice, shooting first and never asking questions.
दूसरे देशों से मेलजोल ने भी विज्ञान को आगे बढ़ाया है।
हाँ, रस विद्या में, मैथमेटिक्स में, अरब, चीन, भारत के बीच काफी लेन-देन हुआ.
Without a literate population, you couldn't create science as a collective enterprise.
Und sich zu einer allgemeinen Wissenschaft des falschen Bewusstseins herausbilden.
To a $535 billion industry is not science fiction anymore.
against the efforts of a PhD in computer science.
Instead of thousands and constant.
Yeah, so even though this was about science, the first cut that came, I still haven't been able to figure out how. Maybe I should dig into the transcript to see what was in there. But sometimes if you do not specifically want the others to know what this is about, it can be hard to figure out what the cut is sort of about. So yeah, so my further thing with this would be to sort of expand the search functionality, because right now I think it's very limited, and also just to make the code a little bit better. Yeah, I think that's it. That's it for me. Thank you.
Okay. So next we have Sultana and Puneet from NOTAT. Puneet is doing his PhD at Milieu Institute of Arts, Concordia University. And Sultana Zana is an artist interested in non-human beings, networks, and emergence. They both run NOTAT, short for Not One Thing at a Time, which is a media art collective. NOTAT creates poetics looking at entanglements of the non-human, the machinic, the human, nature and body in the algorithmic iterative world. Take it away, guys.
Hi, everyone. Can you?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, great. Okay.
Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 second.
Okay. I'll start. Hi,
Yeah.
thank you, Puneet. I'm Sultana, and I'll be presenting the work in brief, and then Puneet will take it over later and talk about how this work makes sense to us in these times. The times we are currently living in, where our bodies are constrained in enclosed spaces, socially distanced from each other, exposed to screens, and algorithmically manipulated by infinite scroll of images that are juxtaposed with unending texts. Our work here is creation of birds. This is a work in search of a bird in the sky. Once the observer opens the link that we're sharing here with everyone, you have to give access to the camera of your device. The camera starts acting as a machinic eye and begins recognizing, or I would say rather detecting, inanimate and animate objects in the vicinity. As you can see here in the video, sometimes a bottle, a vase, or even a human which is far away for the naked eye. All this happens because of a machine learning algorithm running on the backend that has been trained on image data sets of millions of birds. Birds whose images have been clicked by people we don't know, people who have manually annotated and labeled the images for the classification algorithm to learn a pattern in those images. And of course, we can't forget about the bodies that work in hazardous conditions, extracting lithium, elements like lithium that later become an essential component to run our devices. Thus, we as NOTAT want to talk about those bodies, both human and non-human, who go through and have gone through this rhizomatic process of finding a way to connect to us. Thus, through this work, we plan to connect with them too by closing this physically and socially distanced loop. We see text as a medium. We see that text as a medium completes this task beautifully. Therefore, only when the observer points the machinic eye to look for a bird in the sky, and when a bird is detected by the machinic eye, the loop is closed and text is generated. I give it to Puneet here, who can speak more about how it makes sense to us and why we do what we do.
Yeah. So this text that you saw on the screen is a text scrolled through the works of 3 artists and scientists. The first one is from feminist scholar Donna Haraway, who talks about the others, the non-humans. The second is from German biologist Jacob von Uexküll, who is interesting to us because he had an opposing school of thought to Darwin, a school of thought which doesn't believe in a war. so-called the survival of the fittest, but rather in a plan, a situated plan where each subjective individual and his experience has to be seen for itself. The third text we pick is from artist Simon Penny's book Making Sense, where he talks about the impact of mind-body dualism and the Cartesianism on the modern Western thought, and how this dualism has created this false hierarchy of the mind as the center and the body as just a mere extension. In this work, we extend these ideas of Penny, Yuxkul, and Haraway by playful juxtapositions of their selected text by a mechanic agent read by humans in the act of performance. We believe that the body is intelligent and that we are not individuals separated from our environment, but it extends into us. Meaning comes not from the cognitive act of interpretation, but is created in the moment of performance of the sensorial and the environmental. Hence, this performance where we ask you to take your devices outside today and search for birds in the sky interrogates our relationship with stories. Stories generated through text that emerge from our relations with the world. We call this act as a performance, which is choreographed when a camera, analogous to a machinic eye, the human body and the bird overlap their sensory perceptions. While, in other words, only when a camera becomes bird-like, the bird human-like, and human camera-like, an entanglement is perceived. We will leave you now with a 30 seconds video to give a glimpse of this performance, what we are talking about. But before I change the slide, I would like you all to visit the link that will be shared with you on gathertown and on this YouTube page maybe, and visit our Instagram page with our handle notat2021, and perhaps you want to share your performance with the birds today with us also, so that we can share along with the world. 1 second, I'm just trying it hard to, yeah, 1 second. So I'll just share this 30 seconds video with you and then we close. That's it from our side. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. After we are done with this event, we would request you all to step out if it's still daytime or morning time or evening time and try it out. It's actually a lot of fun, and we've kind of incorporated this in our daily routine. It's very stress relieving. So please go ahead and find the birds and poetry in the skies around you. We would now take some Q&As. So if you guys have anything to ask any of the creators, you can feel free to switch on your mics and just go ahead. Ambika will help us moderate this if needed. And I don't think there was anything in the chat as such, but maybe Himani can tell us.
There was a question for Anushka, which was for Radii project, and it was can it take like Hindi words too? Like we posted card.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, can it take the input also, like when you were searching in the Radia interface? Anushka, if you could take that on. Oh, okay. She's having a network issue. So we'll get to it in a bit. But if anyone else has questions for anyone.
Mark has a question about e-literature and how this will influence your future practice. So I'd love to answer that. I don't really know how to go back. I think especially with the realm of children's books. I'm going to show you a little bit of my book. It's super interactive, full of art, and then there are all these like little sections that pop out. And for the longest time, we couldn't even figure out how to get it onto like an ebook reader, for example. But I feel like now I have access to like a world of possibilities for children to play with.
Go eat it, you can't quit. So true.
Hello everyone, this is Shamu here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So first of all, I just wanted to congratulate everyone from the draft team. I really loved the work, and especially I am also involved in electronic literature context, so it's so heartening to see the work that is being done. I'm specifically interested about hearing how you guys went on the creating the database regarding the excavating elite thing, excavating Indian elite. How did you go about finding the works? Because for me, while carrying out my master dissertation to find out works of electronic literature or just people writing in the web, it was a huge pain just to find out where people are writing and how people are writing. It's very difficult to come across resources. So yeah, I just want to know how did you all go about finding people who do this stuff? Yeah. Once again, great stuff. Loved it.
Thanks for the question, Samya. Himani, if you could take that on.
Yeah. So it started, as I mentioned, like it started with reading the papers first because I was new into this and I didn't know anything about e-literature before that. So first it was researching about those things and thereon just connecting all the links. So if there is a person mentioned in the papers, I would go research about them and their work and then look around like social medias and other places to find related work. And then later on we kind of thought, why not just explore these old websites, for example Orkut especially. So like looking for writers or even like WordPress websites where they are like posting or used to post. And as you mentioned, it was really hard. It is like finding something in the ocean where you don't know like exactly where to find. So yeah, that was the process. Now still there's so much to like explore, and this was just the starting point. But we found like amazing things through those things also. Still, we'll see like if we can look for more. But yeah, that's it for now.
Okay, I'll try a question. Is it audible? Yeah, but I'm also interested in this discussion about, how you find Indian elite, but also how you, what you are inspired by, because, yeah, I'm from Denmark, and at least in Denmark and probably in Scandinavia, you also got the experience that Scandinavian elite or Danish elite doesn't look like Anglo-American elite. It comes out of different traditions. So with this in my mind, I'm curious whether you're sort of inspired by an international tradition of electronic literature or by Indian traditions of literature, and in continuation of this, perhaps also Indian elite looks different from what we would expect. Yeah.
Uh, I can say a few things. So yeah, as you mentioned, it definitely somewhere looks different because the way things are taken in India. So for example, even when I was searching for it, there was I like there was not more influence from the say there were more influence of like Indian things than like outside India. because my thought was I am not looking for, like, I'm looking for things which are not tagged as e-lit. So I have to think of how people in India would actually write or produce these kind of content. So that was the main thought. And even like games, and even Pankuri's game for that example, it is very Indian context based. So those things are like right now starting to develop, and were there before, but like people did not look at them as e-lit, but right now can be considered as one. Maybe Ambika can add more to it.
Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to understand the question better. What Soren means by if you're, that's how I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. What do you mean by Indian? Like, what do you mean by Indian? It's different in what way? I mean, I'm just trying to understand the question better. What do you mean, Soren?
Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. Uh, um, uh, yeah, well, I'm definitely not an expert on Indian traditions, and of course, India is a huge country, especially compared to Denmark. Uh, but for instance, I would say, and so the example from, I would say, Danish electronic literature would be that what you've seen in Denmark is less sort of hypertext and more related to concrete poetry, which is a Scandinavian tradition. So in that sense, if you look for hypertext or the hypertext tradition, it really doesn't exist in Denmark, but you have other things, and people have used electronic media, but you have to look for these things, and I believe that's true, especially also for Sweden and Norway, that there is a concrete poetry tradition that's much more visible than, and of course it also exists internationally, but the sort of tradition from hypertext doesn't to that extent. So in that sense, I wonder if you also have Indian traditions that are continued into the electronic. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I understand the question. I since since we as Notart are not really not taking forward Indian traditions, but I still do think that we really are kind of. I don't. I feel like we're also coming from a very from a very context specific pers- from a very context specific to India and to us in a way at this moment. Um, I think that India is quite. I mean, India is quite diverse, and even saying and talking right now about India, I don't feel like I can represent anything except myself, honestly. So, like, but I guess other people can answer as other people have used more, say, specific uh, Indian, kind of texts. Perhaps I don't know. Okay, so that's how much I can say about that. But I was interested to understand the question actually and your point of view. Thank you.
So I'm not too, well versed with the history of e-literature in India. So thank you for that question. I think I want to dive into that. But something that I did think about a fair bit was multilinguality, and I guess a couple of other people did as well. A lot of the documentation for the code is in English, and the expected results as well. So something I was trying to do was with my like drawing poetry section was to have it in Hindi, but being in novices, anything to do with code, it was very hard for me to transition into any language other than English. So that's something that takes a lot of extra effort, kind of. So yeah, but sorry. Also, I think that this also when we did the scraper workshop with Denny, we were looking at Rekta, right? That's what it was called. And so that's Urdu poetry. And so I think like also the way that it's put up on an online platform is different. Like it's still in English. It's transliterated almost. So I think there's a lot of work that can be done, a lot of explorations with different, very, very, very many languages and poetic structures that exist in India offline today.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Sorry, Catherine, go on.
Sorry, go ahead. I think I cut you off.
Okay, so for me, it's kind of, code is basically the only thing I can write well, in a sense. You know, it's not very good, but it's the only thing that I can say that to some extent I can write well. And in that way, it's also a way of expressing. It's kind of the only way of expressing myself that I found. So it's as a medium, it's really important to me, and to refine that medium and further see how I can use it better is my way of looking at code. Yeah.
Great answer. Yeah. I think for me, code is definitely equally important as the kind of poetic text that you see on the surface of the work. I'm definitely really inspired by the field of critical code studies, and I'm really interested in different strategies to kind of bring closer the layers of text and then the underlying code. So our kind of secret 10th hidden work of the source code is one way to do that. So that at the end, if you may not kind of be able to understand everything that's going on, but you can definitely see, for example, like the whole map is laid out in text form, and you can see how that translates into what you were kind of playing with in the game. And then another aspect of it is the individual poems, the individual works. Each of those poems are contained in a single HTML file, so that covers the HTML structure, the CSS style, as well as the JavaScript code. So you could hypothetically go into the Glitch project where we have it hosted and look at that kind of single self-contained code. And I think that could be a really good kind of learning exercise in seeing how the code kind of brings the poetic text to life. And if we were to push this project further, I definitely want to push that even more to the surface in terms of maybe having kind of some kind of on switch on the poem page where you can see as you're interacting with the work what the lines of codes are that are kind of being activated as you're doing that. But yeah, those are just some strategies that I think about in terms of minimizing the distance between text and code.
Add something to this, like because for us the code was one more layer on top of what Anushka and Catherine may perceive, because for us the code was not as a medium of instruction that we tell the machine to do something, but because we were using machine learning algorithms as like code, because we are coding machine learning algorithms. For us there was a loss of agency, because we did it even though we told the machine to search for a bird. We don't know if the machine would say it's a bird or an aeroplane. So I don't know, like I just want to put it out in the world, like for us, like it was a one more layer on top of what we see code as a medium of instructions, because there is a loss of agency between us and the machine when we write specific codes in which we tell the machine to learn on itself and then perform with us, along with us, and that's a totally different poetry to us. So that's all I want to add.
Yes. So Leo has a question. just basically just wants to hear some origin stories, how you awakened to ELIT. Who would want to take this up?
Through the lab, through the collaborative lab.
Thanks, Pankuri. That's a very good answer.
+1.
I think Steffi, if you want to also add to this, because you've been in it for a while.
I actually haven't considered myself as doing ELIT for a while. I kind of just I don't know. It was I started like sharing my poems on Instagram because I felt like they had to be presented as images. I wanted to present them visually, and so kind of Instagram as an image platform just kind of became the natural thing to do. But funny story is that there was an actual like lecture I did in university about co-poetry, and that was sort of the little like light bulb moment that made me want to make my poems look more visual on the page and kind of treat the space of the page as like a space for words to perform. But I guess this collaborative project was what really gave me the opportunity to kind of bring that sense of kinetic form of the letters and movement to animation with the help of Catherine. And she really helped me kind of, because my knowledge in coding is very limited actually. So it was really about kind of going through this process of communicating what kind of animations we wanted to add to the poems. And this was a special project because it also kind of made me think about poems in a different way. Usually with poems on the page, it goes a lot into kind of poetic devices and a lot of the content itself. But then this time it's sort of the text we included could be in a way seen as a little bit more simplistic or easy to understand, like there's no big vocabulary or like rhymes involved, but instead, I guess the poetic sensibility is applied to the process you have to go through in order to read it. For example, we have poems where you just have to use the themes and kind of it's sort of a little bit of a wordplay. For example, of what we showed with scroll, we were thinking about the motion of scrolling on your screen and scrolling on your computer and how we incorporate that as part of the poem. So yeah, that's kind of my journey into ELIT, and I would love to, you know, get a hold of more coding knowledge so I could contribute in more ways and incorporate that into my poetry practice in the future.